Let's make a deal. On today's podcast, I will be analyzing and going over some of your best mock trades for the Atlanta Braves this offseason. We'll discuss those on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at shortstopball. Also, make sure you check out my written work over at bravestoday.com. Make sure you follow the podcast on social media at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. And occasionally, like I'm doing for today's episode, I'll send out a post and I'll use your responses to help build the podcast like we're doing today, going over some of your mock trades. So looking forward to getting into that discussion. Should be a lot of fun. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button as well. We have finally done it. We have reached 8,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're just over 8,000 now. So thank you so much for the support there. Let's continue to push. See if we can get the 9K. Maybe we get to 10K by opening day. That certainly is the goal and something I'm hoping we can accomplish. But either way, I thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for those who have sent me your Spotify Wrapped and all that, letting me know that you listen to the Locked On Braves podcast all year long. I really love getting those and seeing this podcast up on a lot of those lists. So thank you so much for sending those in. Again, really appreciate all the support that you give me here at Locked On Braves. Before we get into our mock trade episode, I want to let you know this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Today's podcast, we have a lot of mock trades that I want to get to, and there are a ton. Had a lot of responses on social media. Sent out the tweet earlier on a Wednesday. Had a lot of you respond, so I want to get to as many of those as I can. But we do have some news that I want to talk about as well before we get into all of that, including some Braves news. They have brought back right-handers Jackson Stephens and Penn Murphy on split, non-guaranteed contracts. And these are two guys that they released this offseason, but now they bring back. I mentioned Jackson Stephens a couple of times this year is a guy who made a lot of sense to bring back just because of the depth he can give you. You can bring him up, throw him into any situation that you need to. So always made some sense to bring him back. And I'm glad that the Braves were able to do that. Same for Penn Murphy. I think this is the big one here. He's going to be injured, so he's going to be out for half of this season, but he's a guy that's still arbitration eligible, has minor league options. And when he's been healthy, he has been really good over the last couple of seasons. So this is somebody that, again, the Braves could get at the midway point. It's that trade deadline without making a trade. Penn Murphy could be that big for this Braves bullpen this year and going forward. So those are the deals that the Braves made today. Nothing crazy happening there, but bringing back Jackson Stephens and Penn Murphy to add some depth to the bullpen. The New York Mets went out and made a couple of deals. They got Joey Wendle for 1 year, $2 million, and be a bench utility role type of guy. Not a terrible signing there. Jaime Barria, somebody who I just mentioned yesterday as a possible guy, kind of in that Jackson Stephens role. I think I mentioned both of those guys in the same light. He gets a minor league deal with the Guardians. So, again, kind of right on point there. I mentioned those two guys as kind of the same type of player in yesterday's podcast, and they both get signed today. That doesn't always happen like that. The Mets also signed Luis Severino, another player that I mentioned a lot this offseason as I thought would be a good fit for the Braves. As Nick C said, we missed out on Luis Severino, but as much as I have mentioned him and wanting the Braves to get him, don't lose a lot of sleep over this one. It's a guy that had a 6+ ERA last year. It's a risky sign. Certainly, there are hopes that he gets back to being the guy that he was before, but there's no guarantee. And $13 million is a good chunk of change for this season for something that you don't know if it's really going to work out or not. So that's a big risk the Mets are taking on. Would I have been upset about it? No, but at that price point, I think coming into the offseason, I said I would have liked it at 1 year, $8 million. But with the way the market is going right now in these 1 year deals, you saw Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson get $12 million. Made sense that Luis Severino would get something around that. So, not, again, Severino, somebody I think I've mentioned on probably 10 or more podcasts this year, just because I like the potential upside. And if you could get him cheap on a 1 year deal, I think it made a lot of sense. But again, not going to lose too much sleep about him going to the Mets. Utility man Garrett Hampson went to the Kansas City Royals, so another utility guy off the market there. And I believe that was, and Emilio Pagan went to the Reds as well, 2 year, $16 million deal to be part of their bullpen. And I think those were all of the player deals that happened on Wednesday. So we're starting to see things pick up a little bit as we gear up for the winter meeting starting this weekend. Now, getting into your trade options, your trade ideas. I asked you to send me in your best mock trades. Want to break all of them down. Sorry, before we do that, there was a rumor as well about Jon Morosi saying that the Braves are a finalist for Dylan Cease. I'm sure the Braves are checking in on them. I wouldn't look into that too much, but it sounds like that market could be narrowing itself down, so that could be exciting. And also another little bit of news from the day, the Rays might be looking to trade Randy Arozarena. And I think we're going to have several mock trades, including both of those guys, Dylan Cease and Randy Arozarena. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these mock trades that you sent over, and I'll tell you if I think it's a good deal or not. Joey Milby, first one that comes up here, says Vaughn Grissom, J.R. Ritchie, David McCabe, and Giancarlo Lara to Cleveland for Bieber or to Tampa for Glasnow. That is way too high of a price in my mind for either of those guys. I don't trust Shane Bieber at this point. Both of those guys have not been very durable here later in their careers. So not that Glasnow is an older guy, more so on the side of Bieber, but either way, neither one of those pitchers has been very durable here lately. That's way too big of a price in my mind for either of those guys. Joe Millie also says Owen Murphy, Spencer Schwellenbach, and Hackenberg for Anthony Santander from Baltimore. I'm not trying to overvalue our own prospects here, but that's also too much for me to give up. I'm not sure how many years of control Santander has left. Trying to look that up really quickly, but I really like Schwellenbach. For me, he's right there in that tier behind the top two, and AJ Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop, and Owen Murphy, right there behind that tier of Schwellenbach and J.R. Ritchie. I like what Hackenberg could be. I mean, I wouldn't lose sleep trading any of those guys, but to do it for Santander, who, an expected batting average of 237 last year, 23% strikeout rate, exit velocities are solid, hard hit, percentages are solid, but still chases a good bit, strikes out a good bit, doesn't walk a ton. A 315, 320 on base guy is going to give you 20 to 30 home runs and can do that. And can play first base and some outfield, but I wouldn't make that move. That's too high of a price in my mind for Santander for the Braves to give up for him. And I'm still trying to see how many years of control he has left. He's a free agent, so definitely wouldn't do it for a rental player in Anthony Santander. So, Joey, I like the aggressiveness there, but that's way too high of a price to pay in my mind for either of those players. Jared Vickery says, sign Hader, Meadows, and Candelario. Never going to happen, but this was fun to do, talking about a trade for Corbin Burns and Willy Adames, giving up Orlando Arcia, Dylan Lee, Owen Murphy, Marcell Ozuna, J.R. Ritchie, and Vaughn Grissom. I don't think a Burns deal gets done unless you're giving up AJ Smith-Shawver or Hurston Waldrop. It's hard for me to imagine them getting that done. There's no real need for them to get Dylan Lee, really, or even Orlando Arcia. I could see maybe a package of Owen Murphy, J.R. Ritchie, Vaughn Grissom, maybe getting that done. If they wanted Arcia just to have him back, I guess. I don't know. I don't really see the fit there, but still hard for me to imagine the Braves getting a Corbin Burns deal done, especially if Willy Adames is in the package as well, without getting one of AJ Smith-Shawver or Hurston Waldrop. Next trade comes from Filthy card breaks, he says, well, the most recent news indicating trade talks for Cease have heated up. I'm interested in what type of trade the Braves would do for that. I think we got a lot of other Cease discussions in here as well. Coach Pinone's film supplier says Braves get Randy Arozarena, Rays get Vaughn Grissom, J.R. Ritchie, Drake Baldwin, and Spencer Schwellenbach. Throw in Glasnow in that deal, and I think maybe you have something there. I mentioned J.R. Ritchie and Spencer Schwellenbach. Those are the two guys. Those are probably my third and fourth ranked prospects in the system right now. They're a tier behind AJ Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop, but guys that I really like. Ritchie's obviously going to be out all of next year. Drake Baldwin could be your DH backup catcher of the future, but I certainly think he could also be trade bait because the catcher position is locked up for a long time with Sean Murphy. I think that's a pretty decent trade package, but again, I'd throw Tyler Glasnow in there, just a little bit, a cherry on top. All right, we got a lot more trades to get to here. Nick C says that's a good one, like that one as well. But I do think this could be, a solid trade package if you're going to go with the Rays. I know we got some other Rays trade ideas coming in as well. We'll try to get to all of those here next. Get in on the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. You want to get in on the action this weekend? Your Georgia Bulldogs are now a 6.5-point favorite for the big SEC game, SEC championship game on Saturday against Alabama. That line's going up. Even when we talked about it yesterday, I think it was 5.5. So you want to get in on that action, make that your money line bet to win you $150 in bonus bets. Go over to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get in on that action. The app is so easy to use. Betting options include spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So again, go over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Also visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Also want to remind you that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Getting back into your mock trades, this one coming from Cavs Buckeyes, who has the Braves getting Randy Arozarena, giving up AJ Smith-Shawver, Vaughn Grissom, and Spencer Schwellenbach. That's probably a more realistic package. Again, Randy Arozarena, I believe, is controllable through 2027 in arbitration. So you're going to have to give up a good bit to get him. He's controllable through the 2026 season. So 3 more years of control with Randy Arozarena. You're probably going to have to give up an AJ Smith-Shawver or a Hurston Waldrop to get that deal done. I think that's probably a fair package. AJ Smith-Shawver, Vaughn Grissom, and Spencer Schwellenbach. I don't know that the Rays have a need for a Vaughn Grissom, but again, all these trades are going to come down to how the team, values a particular player and what their needs are. So it's kind of difficult to speculate on what that is when evaluating some of these trades. But Arozarena would love to have him. Past 3 seasons, 3.7 WAR, 2.7 WAR, 3.3 WAR. So he's a pretty solid, 3 WAR player. But I would just like to have him for, what he brings in the energy, the clubhouse that he has. I would love to have him on this Braves team. I think he would be a great fit. So I like that trade. I think that's probably what gets it done. Again, maybe throw in another name there and see if you get him to throw in Tyler Glasnow. I think if it's me and I'm working with the Rays, I've said I wouldn't make a trade for Tyler Glasnow, or I said I wouldn't give up much for Tyler Glasnow because of the injury risk, and it's $25 million for 1 year. I wouldn't give up much for him, but if you want to package him with Randy Arozarena, then I'm getting more comfortable to give up, one of our top pitching prospects and a handful of our top prospects to get that deal done, because it would be so much fun to have Randy Arozarena in this lineup and with the Braves. But starting pitching is probably more important to acquire. Bellfire says Corbin Burns for Waskari Noah, Dylan Lee, Owen Murphy, Spencer Schwellenbach, Luis Guanipa, and Luke Waddell. Even though you're not giving up AJ Smith-Shawver or Hurston Waldrop in that deal, I feel like that's still too much to give up. Now, I don't think I lose sleep over too many of these players. Luis Guanipa, maybe Spencer Schwellenbach. I think those are probably the two best prospects in this deal. So I wouldn't lose too much sleep over that. I also think at the same time, the Brewers aren't just going to let you, randomly pick a bunch of Braves prospects that aren't their top prospects and say, hey, here's 7 prospects. This should be enough to get Corbin Burns. I don't think that's the way that it's going to work. Another one from Bellfire is Brent Rooker for Cal Conley, Cole Phillips, Dylan Lee, and David McCabe. I've seen several people mention Brent Rooker as a trade possibility for left field. I love Brent Rooker. I watched him in college. He was a lot of fun. I think he was a Golden Spikes winner. Incredible season that he had at Mississippi State. But I mean, the guy's had one decent year in the big leagues. He had a 237 expected batting average, a 343 xWOBA, a 478 xSlug, which is good, 49.5% hard hit rate, but he struck out 33% of the time. I mean, you're trading for a right-handed platoon bat, and I think that's just I'd rather just go with Vaughn Grissom, honestly. I mean, you're not going to get the power that you're going to get with the Brent Rooker, certainly, but I think I'd rather just go with Vaughn Grissom and hold on to those prospects. I mean, giving up Cole Phillips, somebody that I'm very high on once he gets healthy, I think could be a really good prospect. David McCabe, one of the better bats in the system. Again, would not lose sleep giving up any of those prospects, but I'd much rather just hang on to them and go with Vaughn Grissom in left field or get somebody cheap, bring back Eddie Rosario even, rather than go off after a Brent Rooker. Benjamin Pack, I'm willing to add a little more to this, but what do you think of Dylan Cease for Vaughn Grissom and AJ Smith-Shawver? I think that's enough. Maybe you throw in a third prospect there, but I feel like any deal with the Braves for Dylan Cease that involves one of AJ Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop should be enough to get it done, whatever else you're throwing in at that point. But yeah, AJ Smith-Shawver, Vaughn Grissom, I think that's a solid, fair trade for Dylan Cease and can probably get it done. Again, if you want to throw in another lower level prospect into that deal just to sweeten it, sure. I don't know that I would do that deal. Be curious if a lot of you, I know some of you have backed off the Dylan Cease hype train, saying he's not worth giving up that much for. But again, you got to give up something to get something. I'm also kind of swinging to the point of view now that I'm not trading for Dylan Cease unless I can extend Dylan Cease. I'm not giving up AJ Smith-Shawver or Hurston Waldrop unless I know I can extend Dylan Cease. And I don't know that you can do that. So, and I get the sentiment from Laves, who says Braves window is now. AJ Smith-Shawver could take a few years to develop. I get that, and I understand the argument for both sides, but AJ Smith-Shawver could be Dylan Cease in 2 years, and then you're still scrambling to find a top of the rotation pitcher at that point. Look, I just did a podcast yesterday talking about going all in, but I was more so speaking on the free agent front, but still, I wouldn't mind doing that deal, but you got to find a way to extend Dylan Cease, or else you're finding yourself back in this situation in a couple of years. Brendan says, going a little nuts with this. Ozzie slides to DH and Vaughn to second, with Arcia becoming the utility guy. Royce back to his natural shortstop position, and we get an upgrade in defense and left. So this deal is Royce Lewis and Byron Buxton for AJ Smith-Shawver, Marcell Ozuna, Forrest Wall, and J.R. Ritchie. I don't know why Forrest Wall is listed in a trade here. I don't know why the Twins do that. And, other than just it's two injury-prone guys as well as Lewis and Buxton. The surplus they have on the trade evaluator for Royce Lewis is 74, which just seems ridiculous for somebody who hasn't been able to stay on the field. But first of all, I don't think that trade's enough to do it, and I don't know that I would still want to do it anyway, just because of the injury risk associated with those two players. Wendy says, Tommy Edman and Dylan Carlson for Dylan Dodd and Orlando Arcia. I don't know why the Cardinals do that trade. I don't think the Cardinals are getting enough in that deal. One also said Freddie Peralta and Willie Adames for Vaughn Grissom, Bryce Elder, Hurston Waldrop, and Luis Guanipa. So that is an interesting trade right there. That one I think is probably a better fit. You're giving up two of your probably best hitting prospects, although I know Grissom's not a prospect at this point. You're giving them a MLB-ready pitcher in Bryce Elder, and you're giving them a potential front-of-the-rotation pitcher in Hurston Waldrop, but the Braves are getting a shortstop who would be a rental. It's another one where I think you'd have to extend him, and you're getting Freddie Peralta, who's very cheap and a number 2 starter that's going to be with you for, I believe, 3 more years. He's under team control, so that one's a little bit more interesting. Don't know that I'd pull the trigger on it, but that one definitely intrigues me a lot more. William Brave says Mullins for AJ Smith-Shawver and Lee. I don't know why everybody's trying to trade Dylan Lee all of a sudden. I don't know what value he has at the moment, but I think Mullins for AJ Smith-Shawver, I don't know. Cedric Mullins coming off a bit of a down year. I need to look up real quick how many years of control he has left, but I don't know. That one doesn't strike me right away as a great deal for the Braves. Cedric Mullins going into his age 29 season, 721 OPS the last 2 years. So he's been kind of league average with the bat, 15, 16 home runs. Gives you 20 plus stolen bases though as well. Yeah. I don't love that one just on the surface. I like Cedric Mullins. I think he should be an option for the Braves if they're looking to upgrade left field and they're looking to do it through a trade. I think Mullins could be a target with all the options that the Orioles have over there. Mullins is under arbitration for 2 more seasons, so 24 and 2025. I don't know. I don't think I'd do that one. I don't think I'd give up AJ Smith-Shawver for Cedric Mullins. Again, pitching is the key going forward here. You don't need as much offense. So in my mind, left field's not as big of a deal as it is getting starting pitcher for the future, and you're giving up a potential starting pitcher for the future for a left fielder that's under control for 2 years. So I don't like that one. Yes, I love Turtles. Everybody asking in the chat, I'm not sure why, but sure, love Turtles. Go with that. Gustavo Nava says Brady Singer for Grissom and Cole Phillips. Interesting one. Brady Singer, somebody I like, but his ceiling in my mind is a number 3 pitcher. He's a contact pitcher. I don't think it's needed, and I don't think I give up Grissom and Cole Phillips for him. Also said Paul Blackburn for Ambiorz Tavares, Darius Vines, and Huascar Noah. I do that one in a heartbeat. That's probably the first trade on here that I've said from the Braves standpoint I do in a heartbeat. And it's not that I love Paul Blackburn. I think he's probably another guy that's ceiling is a number 3 starter, but I'm not real big on Ambiorz Tavares and his future with the bat. Vines and Noah are depth starters. I would do that one in a heartbeat, but I also don't really see the reason for the Oakland A's to want to do that one. And then last one from Gustavo, Mitch Keller for Owen Murphy, J.R. Ritchie, and Alan Winans. I'm not a big Mitch Keller believer either. I know he got off to a hot start last year. I am a big J.R. Ritchie believer, although he's obviously going to be out all of next year having Tommy John surgery. I don't hate the trade because J.R. Ritchie is going to be out for a while with injury, so it might be you're looking 2026 maybe before Ritchie's available. I'm not huge on the upside of Owen Murphy. I think his upside is a number 3 starter. And obviously Alan Winans is just, a back of the rotation guy. So I don't think that's the worst trade package in the world. I'd probably pull the trigger on both the Paul Blackburn and the Mitch Keller deal. But if I'd pull the trigger on it, that probably means the team we're dealing with won't. So I like those last 2 trades. Probably wouldn't do the Brady Singer one. All right, I got a lot more of these mock trades to get to. It's been a lot of fun reading through these here live and going through them with you. Let me know what you think about some of these trades and continue to send me some of your mock trades in the comments section below. I'll try to get to the rest of these here and next. Another reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, I'm going to try to get to as many of these other mock trades as I can. Thank you so much for those who are here live. I see Nick C, Little E, Money 2K, Joe Reese in here, Laves, E. Balderson, so many people. Chris Kaysen, thank you for telling everybody to hit that like button. Appreciate it. Trey Alexander, Philip Perryman. We got over 200 people in here. Again, it's like it's 7th, 8th time in a row now. We've had over 200 people live. It's a lot of fun reading through some of these comments. I know I don't always get to read all of these while we're recording, but I do go back and read them afterwards. Leland Hurt in here. Thank you so much for all your support being here with me live. But jump back into some of these mock trades from social media, though. And Ryan Hall says, apparently Tampa Bay is shopping Arozarena. What would it take to get him in Atlanta? That would solve the left field quandary. Certainly think that it would. We've looked at a couple of packages for him. I think you would have to give up an AJ Smith-Shawver or a Hurston Waldrop to get him done. But if you can get him and Tyler Glasnow, then I really, really love the prospects of going after Randy Arozarena. William Brave says, cease for Elder, Dodd, Guanipa, and Richie. So that's an interesting package to try to get it done without giving up one of your top two guys. I kind of keep saying that, AJ Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop. So now whenever I say the top two guys, you know who I'm talking about. But I don't think that gets it done from the White Sox perspective. You're getting two back of the rotation arms in Elder and Dodd who aren't really going to help the White Sox long term. You're getting somewhat of a lottery ticket in Guanipa, and you're getting Richie, who has some upside as maybe a number 2 starter, but somebody that's currently having Tommy John surgery. So I don't think that gets it done. Joshua Julian says, Joey Ortiz for Bryce Elder, Spencer Schwellenbach, Owen Murphy, and Cade Keeler. I think that's a pretty solid package for Joey Ortiz, who is a infield prospect with the Baltimore Orioles. I don't know Ortiz's future, if it's at shortstop or not. He's listed on MILB.com as a second baseman. So if it doesn't look like he can stick at shortstop long-term, then I don't really know where he fits in. He's also, 25, so he's a little bit on the older side, but certainly a very good prospect. Hit 321 last year, 885 OPS. I mean, he's pretty much MLB ready, but that's a lot to give up for him, for somebody that, again, I don't know if he sticks at shortstop. The Braves would have to make that decision, certainly. But I'm only trading for him if I believe he can be that shortstop of the future. The next one says, Jamison Bell, Waldrop, Vines, Alvarez, Cole Phillips for Dylan Cease. That probably gets it done. That might be too much in my mind. Again, all of these trade conversations for Dylan Cease, it all depends on if you extend him or not. And if you're not going to extend him, I don't know that I feel comfortable giving up AJ Smith-Shawver or Hurston Waldrop. Look, I love Dylan Cease. In my ideal offseason, it's the move that I said. And at that time, I said I would give up one of those guys. But the more I think on it and dwell on it, it's very risky to give up one of your two top starting pitching prospects who could be Dylan Cease in a couple of years, for Dylan Cease, who only has 2 years of control, is a Scott Boras client. So some of these packages, like that package, makes sense, but in my mind, it only makes sense if you can extend Dylan Cease. And I see Corey Thomas and Laves saying keep Waldrop, no Waldrop, don't trade him. Again, I had the question the other day, would you rather trade AJ Smith-Shawver or Waldrop? And many of you said you'd rather trade AJ Smith-Shawver. And I agree with that. That's also who I would rather trade. But I'd also rather both of them come up this year and become those top of the prospect arms we think they could be. Truest Chop says Braves get Freddie Peralta, Brewers get Schwellenbach, Richie, Grissom, McCabe, plus AJ Smith-Shawver to throw in Adames to that deal. Again, I think that's another very solid package if you're getting Freddie Peralta, who's a controllable number 2 starter at a very good price. It's a lot to give up. Those are 3 of my top 4 prospects in the Braves system, and 2 of your better hitters in Grissom in McCabe. That's a lot to give up, but you are at least getting a controllable starter. Adames, again, I think you'd have to try to extend him if you're going to do that deal. Brad says Noelvi Marte for Elder and Lee. I don't think the Reds want to trade Marte. I think they more likely would trade one of their other infielders, McLean even, although I don't think they'd want to trade him either. I know they're already somewhat shopping Jonathan India. Brad also said Kjerstad for Enoa, Richie, and Dodd. I don't think that's enough for Kjerstad. I saw somebody else in there. Oh, here it is right here. Hayden Harris said AJ Smith-Shawver for Heston Kjerstad straight up. Both needs met. I think that's the deal. If you're going to get a Kjerstad that probably gets it done, doing a straight up deal of either AJ Smith-Shawver or Hurston Waldrop straight up for Heston Kjerstad. Again, don't know that I do that because, and this is again what I talked about in my ideal offseason scenario earlier this offseason. But again, the more I think about it, starting pitching is the key going forward. And so to give up somebody that might be a part of that future rotation for a left fielder, which would be great to have, but is not needed with this roster, I don't know that that makes the best sense for the success of this team long term. XRP Braves says Luis Robert for Grissom, AJ Smith-Shawver, Owen Murphy, Ambioris Taveras, sign Yamamoto, do the best target either. Sorry, I don't know the rest part of that, but Luis Robert for Grissom, AJ Smith-Shawver, Owen Murphy, Ambioris Taveras. I think that's a solid package. Throw in Dylan Cease with that. Maybe the Braves throw in another prospect or two, and I like that even more. I definitely like the sign Yamamoto part. All right, last one here from Brad Horn says Juan Soto for AJ Smith-Shawver. It's kind of the same discussion I've had with some of these other mock trades for left fielders. Starting pitching is the question going forward and the key for the Braves. I don't know that I want to deal from that and hurt the long-term outlook of this rotation, especially for 1 year of a left fielder when the rest of this lineup is set up to be good. This offense can be one of the best offenses in baseball again, if not the best, without doing anything in left field this offseason. I don't know what this rotation looks like long term. So I really hate to give up not only somebody that could be a part of that rotation long term, but somebody who you could trade for somebody who is part of that rotation long term. So I think I'm kind of off the train or the thought of trading one of your top two prospects for a left fielder. I'd rather just hold on to those prospects to either make them part of that rotation or trade them for somebody who is going to be part of that rotation long term. All right, I think I got to most of your mock trades. We had over 30 submitted mock trades in here. I know there's some that I didn't get to, but I appreciate you submitting all of those. Appreciate so much all of those who are here live. I think last count I saw was 235 people in here viewing live. Thank you so much for all the support. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you hadn't. We're now on the road to 9K. So thank you so much for all the support there. Follow on social media at shortstopball, at lockdown_Braves. If you are listening on the audio, do me a favor, go to Apple Podcasts, give us that 5-star review. I really would appreciate it. However, you support us here at Locked On Braves, I really, really do appreciate it. So make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast, and we will talk to you next time.